Hello, Canucks fans. What happened?
There we go. All right, Harman's quick on it. Hello, Canucks fans, and welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, brought to you by Wendy's. Frozen pucks are awesome when they're in the back of the other guy's net, but that doesn't mean that you'd want to eat one. That's why Wendy's only ever uses fresh Canadian beef that's never seen the inside of a freezer in all of their burgers. Whether you order a Baconator, Dave's Single, or even a JBC, you'll only ever find real fresh beef that's juicy and loaded with fresh toppings. So download the Wendy's app, check out the latest deals, and order a burger that's only job is being delicious. And of course, we're coming to you from the iconic Wall Center in downtown Vancouver. Looking for your next meeting space? Contact the Wall Center for all your event needs at sales@wallcenter.com. David Quadrelli alongside Harman Dial. After a very sunny Vancouver weekend, it got really hot on Saturday.
Yeah, it was
touching 30.
Really warm.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of that. I have an AC thing that cools the whole apartment. I'm so thankful for it. I couldn't live without it anymore. And I never grew up with AC. It was always just hot. If it's hot outside, it was hot in the house.
I always hate the feeling of going out somewhere and you can feel that you're sweating.
Oh.
I hate that feeling. So that's the only complaint I have when it gets warm and sunny, because otherwise I love it, is I don't want to feel gross when I'm just out and about.
No, and let's be honest here, guys. Your legs sweat the most, right? I hate that.
Yeah.
That's the worst feeling. Picking at your underwear. Anyways. Okay.
By the way, this is sort of random, but it happened over the weekend. A bird crapped on me.
No.
On Saturday.
I heard some cultures believe that's good luck.
Yeah, I heard that immediately. I was pissed off because I was like, what do you mean? I've got geese crap all over my white shirt.
Oh no.
Maybe that's gonna be good luck.
It's something they just told people to make them feel better.
Exactly.
Because it is pretty, no pun intended, pretty crappy to get pooped on by a bird. So where were you? What happened?
So I was in Gastown. I was just catching up with some friends. We were literally just standing on the street, hanging out for a bit. I think we're going to go to our friend's office just to hang out for a little bit. And in the middle of our conversation, we'd been there for like 10, 15 minutes. Plop. I just banged straight into the middle.
Did you hear it?
I didn't hear it.
Oh, you didn't hear it.
Okay. I felt the impact first, and then I looked down.
Oh, you felt the impact?
Yeah,
that must have been a lot.
Dude, and right away.
Oh, yeah, go on.
And right away, the lucky thing is I just bought a leather jacket while thrifting earlier in the day. It was the first time wearing it. I'm so lucky that it didn't hit the jacket.
Wow.
So in a way, like, I was unlucky, but also lucky at the same time.
As we said on Wednesday, you're a big jacket guy. You got the good jacket hookups. You told me where to go buy my jacket for the proposal. And I'm glad your jacket didn't get pooped on as well. Okay. Yeah. Originated in Russia that it's good luck to get pooped on a bird. But what I'm trying to find out, I thought it was when a bird poops on you, it's really just pee or something.
I have no idea.
Anyways, get some Canuck stuff, some stuff we know about. This first segment is brought to you by the Daily Faceoff Playoff Parlay Challenge. I'm reading this too soon. Let's talk about Game 1 of the Cup Final. Game 2 goes tonight. And ahead of Game 2, we're going to play the Playoff Parlay Challenge as we do every day on this show, every game day. So, Game 1, the Sergei Bobrovsky show, I think.
100%. I mean, the Oilers controlled play for most of it. They had a ton of chances. I mean, how many times did an Oilers forward get behind Florida's defenders and basically
3 breakaways,
get in all alone, right?
Yep.
That's so rare for a Panthers team that typically defends so well, and each time Bobrovsky was right there. I mean, watching him in that game, it felt like he was so explosive, so athletic. He's also anticipating really well. There was a save in the third period off a cross seam chance that should have looked like, oh my God, what a save. But Bobrovsky had anticipated it so well. He was already covering the movement of the pass, and he made it look easy. That's the mark of a goalie who's dialed in, is when they make 10 bell saves look ordinary. That's the level that Bobrovsky was operating at. And on top of that, from the Oilers' perspective, Nurse Ceci, another sort of rough game for them. And this is where sometimes you have games where you control play, but you make a couple of egregious mistakes that end up costing you. That's where those guys weren't very good. And it's why Ceci is appearing to be a scratch for Game 2.
Yeah, CC not in the lineup tonight for Game 2. No surprise there. I I guess some surprise maybe out of Edmonton, but that pairing getting reunited, and I saw a lot of people criticizing Chris Knobloch for this. He was praised for splitting that pairing up because where they were really abysmal, and Canucks fans will know this, where they were really abysmal was the series against Vancouver. Like, they are almost the reason, well, them and Stuart Skinner, that the Canucks even took it to 7 games. And had they not breaking that pairing up, the Canucks might be in the Cup Final right now, or at least the Western Conference Final. Like, it might have been the Canucks that took Game 7, but Chris Knobloch, to his credit, made that adjustment. I don't know how you go back to that pairing.
You can't.
You can't. You can't. You don't have Troy Stecher, although I'm not sure people know this, but Troy Stecher had ankle surgery. I tweeted out, play Stecher, and then I got a few people texting me being like, hey, just so you know, he's getting ankle surgery. I was like, why hasn't no one announced this? But anyways, like, okay, little tangent. No one asked about Troy Stecher not skating for like weeks in the Edmonton media there. Don't clip this, Jacob. But in Vancouver, if like Mark Friedman takes a shot at practice and leaves, we're asking about it. If Mark Friedman isn't skating, I don't want to just use Mark Friedman, but I'm saying like if your Troy Stecher equivalent doesn't skate, it's what's going on? Like immediately. That's the first question in the scrum. How did no one ask about Troy Stecher? Anyways, I'm getting off topic. Game 1, Panthers take it by a final score of 3-0. 32 shots on goal for the Oilers, 18 for the Florida Panthers, but the Panthers made theirs count. Stuart Skinner, can we talk about him?
Sure, yeah.
I'd like to rescind my Conn Smythe pick.
I am so shocked. Wow.
For those that missed it on Friday, we were going over the odds of each Conn Smythe winner, and I said the value pick at plus 5,000 odds is Stuart Skinner. I don't like those odds at all. I would take Gustav Forsling at 6,500 or whatever it was.
Yeah, I'm glad you gave your head a shake, and whatever you did to regrow your brain cells, like, let me know.
Updated. Sergei Bobrovsky. This is courtesy of our friends over at Bet365. Plus 175. He's now the favorite. It was Connor McDavid by a country mile. Sergei Bobrovsky after that game jumps up to plus 175. Alex Barkov at plus 300. Right now you can get Connor McDavid at plus 300. That's not our bet of the day, though. I got one later. But anyways, I always find it interesting to kind of follow along with this as the series goes along. But Sergei Bobrovsky, he's the story of game 1, and rightfully so. He was phenomenal in that game. And I like that you notice the anticipating, because that is a sign that a goaltender's locked in. It's what we see from Thatcher Demko basically every time he steps into a crease. But for Sergei Bobrovsky, like when we were previewing this series, we were talking about how it's a very, very volatile in the crease. You don't know what you're getting from either guy.
And this is where game 2, it'll be so interesting to see. Is Bobrovsky going to be on one for the entire series, in which case the Oilers are probably cooked? Because let's be honest, as far as the Panthers actually controlling play, them playing to their potential, they weren't anywhere close. And yet they were still able to win because of Bobrovsky. If he's playing, maybe not at this level, but close to it for this entire series, if he's going to be dominant, then the Oilers are in real trouble. But we know Bobrovsky is also very streaky. He had a couple sketchy moments in the Rangers series. Will he come back down to earth? It's such a important, fascinating question mark for me.
A lot of questions heading into tonight's game, and we are going to answer them because it's time for us to play the Daily Faceoff Playoff Parlay Challenge. Folks, you can go play it yourself over at games.dailyfaceoff.com. The game is simple, as you'll see now. Pick the winning team, guess if the points will be over or under, predict the first goal, choose the highest scoring period. Daily winners snag gift cards, while each round's champs pocket cash. You're running out of time, folks. Sign up for it if you haven't already over at games.dailyfaceoff.com. Harm, do the Florida Panthers go up 2-0 in this series tonight?
What are you feeling?
They're the favorite at minus 130. Edmonton at plus 105. I think the Oilers come back tied.
I can see
I
it
think
too.
they stick to it, and I don't think Bobrovsky posts another shutout. Does that not sound logic? They've now split up Nurse Cece.
Yeah, I still think Florida is going to win the series, but I can
go
see
Edmonton
winning this one. Yeah,
Edmonton, and if they do it, I think it's going to be over 5.5 goals. Okay, first goal goes to
say Edmonton.
Edmonton, I like it. We're sticking with it. Highest scoring period. It was equal last game. I don't think that's going to be the case tonight.
Yeah, let's go third period.
I like it. That's a good pick, Harm. Okay, Alex Barkov gets an assist. He gets 1.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Connor McDavid gets 2 assists.
Yeah.
Okay. Zach Hyman, total goals. Does he score 1? Yes.
Yeah.
Matthew Tkachuk scores a goal?
No.
No. I like it. I like it. And the total shots on goal, because someone got it right one time, going with 57. Okay. Picks are confirmed.
5 out of 8, not bad last time.
Yeah, 5 out of 8 last time. Good
We
point.
got the most
bringing that up.
important parts. We got the fact that Florida would win. We got the under.
Yeah. I wonder who, because you can check who won each game. So I want to check who took it for the last one. Stanley Cup Final leaderboard. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. Someone got all 8. Someone won like perfect. We ranked 53rd. More people are playing the game now. So 5 out of 8 picks wasn't the flex that we hoped it would be. Anyways, let's get to Dave Hall. Our man Dave Hall is brought to you by our friends over at 4 Winds Brewing. More specifically, our friend Dave Hall is brought to you by the Featherweight IPA. We talk about it all the time. We're going to do it again. If you're looking for a nice hoppy beer but still want something light and flavorful, then look no further than the 4 Winds Featherweight IPA. At just 4.5%, this incredibly light IPA is packed full of tropical and citrusy goodness. Available now at liquor stores across BC or through the 4 Winds online shop for home delivery anywhere in British Columbia at 4windsbrewing.ca. Locally owned and operated in Delta. Go check them out. Light the lamp. Hopefully it comes back next year. Win yourself a gift card to the 4 Winds Tap Room, which is in Delta on River Road. Okay, let's bring him in. Dave Hall. A big theme of today's show, Dave, is going to be about Canucks prospects. So we thought, who better than the man wearing a Seattle Mariners hat, like I usually am on this show, very nice, to come in and talk prospects with us. Dave Hall, the Canucks Army prospect guru. How are you?
Doing great. It's a beautiful Monday afternoon. How could you not be?
We even today, folks.
I will say that
is.
you know that David and I are both we have to be diehard Mariners fans, as they're quite literally maybe the worst organization out there. My entire life they've made the playoffs 4 times, so you know that we've got to be fans.
Hey, first in the AL West this year. They're turning things around.
It's our time.
It's our time. It's our time. Okay, Dave. The topic of our poll question, I saw you commenting on this on Twitter as well, was just flat out, which Canucks prospect has the best chance at cracking the NHL roster? And we added a follow-up that I meant to write out of camp here. Max Sasson, Jonathan Lekermaki, or Atu Ratu, and then we also gave the option for people to write in. Your thoughts?
Well, and I will get to those 3, but if I can, I will add 2 others. And the first one, just right off the bat, and you can consider him a prospect or not, with over 125 games under his belt now, but my obvious answer is Vasily Podkolzin. I just think, he's kind of in that mix of prospect, not prospect. Played a couple games in Abbotsford last year. I just think at this point, it's always just been, I hope he carves out a permanent role. I hope he does well this year. I think we're past that I hope stage. And for me, I think we're at the point where he must, earn that spot. He must maintain that that serviceable role, whether it's in the bottom 6, that's fine. I just think this is the big year for him. So for me, that's the obvious answer. We can't have Podkolzin in Abbotsford. That's just a no-go. And then number 2 is Archie Baines. Just the difference, I know that he's a little bit older, but the difference that he had from year 1 to year 2 was just incredible. And whether it was from an offensive standpoint, a leadership role, or just a straight up driver, he was the golden child in Abbotsford. And I think he has warrant and probably will come back in training camp, knocking on the door. This goes all the way back to the Western League, but you can see that in every single one of his leaps, he's never really came out the gate super strong. He's always taken some time to kind of learn the league, figure it out, and then comes back the next year and comes out gangbusters. So now he's, in the last couple games, we could kind of tell that he was probably a little bit above his head, and he should probably go back to Abbotsford. But now that he's gained the reps, he's seen what it needs to happen. He knows the speed, he knows the physicality. I do personally think that he comes back after a good summer in training camp and ultimately earns a spot on this roster. Now, to go with the three that we talked, or that were in the poll, my answer was Max Hassan, and there's a few reasons for that. And I think if you've been following me for a while now, you're probably not super shocked on me choosing Hassan. I've been quite vocal on him wanting a spot, and I get why he wasn't. It was kind of just, a sign of the times. They were heading for the playoffs. You, at that point, you're trying to work out the kinks. You don't want to just bring in Sasson for whatever reason. If this was the year before, however, I do think we saw or see Sasson in the lineup at some point. I just think ultimately, first things first is that he's probably at this point, as much as you might not like it, he probably is our best center prospect. So even when he moves up, he's going to play center. He plays the role well. He's always the fastest player on the ice. So even Archie Baines is fast in the AHL, but Max Hassan has that ability. I believe he's going to be fast in the NHL. So his skating's ready. He works every single shift. He plays one of those talk-it types where he just doesn't give up, and he gets into the dirty areas and he'll drive play. So for me, it's probably just a fourth line role, and that's probably where he might cap out, maybe third line center. But I think as a cheaper option, I do think he is probably the best option to go up, simply for the fact that he will maintain a center role. Looking at Lekkerimäki, I think obviously he's the golden child. He's the one that we all want, and that we all expect him to go. But for me, I think it's important to really tread lightly here. At this point, he does sort of represent, at least in the forward group, our quote unquote must hit prospect, right? Like he's our only homegrown, high pedigree, high draft pick prospect that we sort of need to make sure that hits. If he can hit, he's a huge addition. So I do think it's important that we kind of tread lightly with his confidence and his development. And so for me, maybe he comes in, he goes to Penticton and the Young Stars, has an unbelievable showcase, comes in the camp super confident, scores a couple goals, and he makes the spot. That's great. I think everyone's all for that. But for me, unless he's coming in to play a top 6 role next to Elias Pettersson, where he's gonna, be put in a spot to score goals, shoot as much as he wants, then that's great. And yes, let's do it. But at the same time, if he's not, let's get him down to Abbotsford playing top 6, top power play, shooting a ton, and just seeing where it goes. And then we can look back at it at Christmas. For me, I'm just a little worried. Although we all want it, I just don't see the need to really put him in there unless he commands the spot, which could happen. I'm not sold on it right now.
Yeah, that's a great take on the Lekkerimäki situation, especially because being one of the later birthdays from the 2022 draft class, he is one of the youngest players of his draft class. He's still only 19. He hasn't even turned 20 years old yet. Now, as for Archie Baines, I'm curious, what's your confidence level that he can develop into something more than just a replacement level depth piece? Like, is there a scenario where maybe it doesn't happen right away, but over time that he can be, let's say, a decent third line forward, or is his ceiling just a kind of run of the mill depth player?
Yeah, I think that's probably likely, but I do think there is something there for a third line center. He has shown he's got great offensive ability. His vision is incredible. Sometimes, in the AHL it works. Maybe it doesn't always work at the NHL level. He does a lot of spin, quick, behind the back plays. He's crafty, so he does have that offensive pedigree, and he is fast. I think once he comes back and he's worked on the stuff that he's now learned from his 6-game stint in the NHL, I think there is a spot to be had on the third line. But it is going to be one of those things. It's just if he can get that extra speed and use that vision that maybe isn't just so, I don't know what the word I want to use is, but just sometimes he gets a little reckless with his passes, which always work out in the AHL, but we'll see if they can work out in the NHL.
Dave, what can we expect from Tom Willander next season?
Well, I think the nice thing is Lane Hudson's going to be gone. And so for me, I think it's going to be a really nice year that he's going to be the guy to top line, whether it's even strength or power play. I think the power play is going to be the big thing, because obviously we love his defense. We love his work ethic. We love all that stuff on the defensive end. Still some things to work out, but what really needs to pop is that offensive pedigree. And obviously the numbers this year were, quite pedestrian. So from anyone that isn't watching the games, it's hard to tell whether he's playing good or not, because his numbers don't look that great. But he was also, his average was 30 seconds on the power play. So I think him just getting an extra extra little push offensively, and not only offensively, but just as the guy in Boston, I think that's going to be a big tell towards what his game's really going to truly look like. And so who knows what happens. I just think it's going to be a big year for him just as the man in Boston. So
it seemed like Ratu really caught fire down the stretch in Abbotsford. It also feels like he's been more successful on the wing than at center. Do you look at him as a dark horse in that maybe if he has a big summer, he at some point next season could be an impact player for this Canucks team? And maybe not next season, but just big picture, when you look at Ratu as a prospect, what do you think his realistic ceiling is?
Well, right off the bat, for me, for the realistic ceiling, it's probably on the wing. I just, like he's a good centerman in the sense that he's good at faceoffs and he's good at the actual positioning of a centerman. I just don't know the problem with Ratu this year, and he had a really good year. Don't get me wrong, the development was great. He's worked on a lot of game. He upped all of his numbers. It's fantastic, but there's also an element of he's a little bit inconsistent. Like there are moments where you get 14 points in 7 games. That's great. It's so, it's great to see. But then 12 games before that, there were games where you don't even notice him. And then 10 games after that, there were games that you don't notice him. So they kind of come in spurts. And even when he was getting the points, my issue was that there wasn't a lot of, in my opinion, play driving. Like it was typically him being on the wing with Max Hassan in the center, going into the corners, grabbing it, and Ratu getting the secondary assist. More than almost 3/4 of his points were secondary assists last year. So, while we do like the development, and don't get me wrong, it was a great year, and I'm really excited to see what he has this year. I'm personally sort of in the same boat as Lekaramäki, where even if he has a good camp and shows some good stuff next year, I still would like to see him back in Abbotsford, which is probably going to happen regardless. But I would like to see him back and basically just do it again. Let's see if you can actually, maintain that top 6 role and actually start driving play. Because that was the one thing for me that I didn't see a lot of, was just his ability to drive play. And I just think the skating has improved big time, and hopefully it'll improve even more this summer. But it still just wasn't quite up to par for where I feel comfortable that he's a centerman at the NHL level. So for me,
yeah.
Oh, balloons.
I don't know did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that.
I don't know how that happened. Sorry.
That was awesome. No, that's awesome. Yeah, so basically, like I do think he's got pedigree to be that middle 6 winger. He's got some interesting qualities. For me, it's on the wing.
I don't know how I got those balloons to go, but if it was in the podcast, a bunch of balloons popped up. I know I can do the thumbs up and get a thumbs up to pop up. I don't know how it all works, but anyways, the thing that I was going to say though, it feels like those two, Ratu and Lekaramäki, might be able to actually play together, maybe be the guys together. Dave, is there any other prospect that maybe we're not talking about enough and that Canucks fans should have their eye on? Hey, and if they want to have their eye on it, you're going to be at Dev Camp. You're going to be doing Blackfish all year long, like you always do over at Canucks Army. That's where you find all the good prospect updates and the bad ones.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, with all this talk about the forwards, there's not too much going on the defensive side. The one thing I like about their defense is AHL wise, I think Abbotsford is going to have a really fun back end. Now, as of this year, there's going to be a nice mix of veteran and young blood in there, so that's going to be fun. I think Elias Pettersson, or DPD, if you will, is probably someone to keep an eye on. I was a little upset that we didn't see him down the stretch in the playoffs, and I can kind of see where Colleton was coming from. He doesn't have a lot of experience, and they wanted to play their more veteran guys in order to push past that round. But at the same time, I was really hoping to see Pettersson in the playoffs, as that's pretty much what his game is. And so he's definitely a name that I would keep an eye out. Another name that I am intrigued with, and I just want to see what he can do, is Josh Bloom. Obviously, you guys had him on last week. He's a great kid. He did try it out. Just he struggled to get minutes. But I will say, and I think I even sent a message to you in his first game, that wow, Josh Bloom, in his first game in the AHL, he stuck out to me. Like he's always working. His feet are always moving, and I just think, sometimes we look at a 20-year-old and we think, oh, some people call him a bust, but he's only 20 years old. Like we bring in NCAA prospects that are 22, 23, and we're hoping that they work out. But then, when a 20-year-old can't make the pro team, it's, the end of the world. So I'm really interested to see what he does this year. And while I don't think he probably won't be like an offensive huge guy at the AHL, I am curious to see how he makes out in the middle 6 here in Abbotsford.
With Sawyer Minyo, it feels like he's a name that maybe doesn't get a lot of attention in this market. He was a third-round pick, I believe, in 2023. In his draft year, felt like he was on a stacked WHL team, didn't have as much opportunity. Some of their players moved on, graduated. Minyo took on a bit more of a bigger role on that blue line in the top four, more offensive opportunity. His point total sort of exploded, although he is still more of a defenseman type.
Mhm.
What did you see from his development this season, and what are your just overall thoughts on him as a prospect?
Yeah, to be honest, he was probably out of all of them, out of all the prospects this year, he was probably the most surprising to me. I had seen his game, and like you said, he was put under like a really stacked Seattle team that went to the finals, and they were really good. So he was playing a sheltered role. And one thing that stood out for me this year, I really like his skating, I like his two-way ability, but his shot, I did not see that shot before. Before he was drafted, to be honest, his release is incredible. He's got, whether it's a one timer or just a clapper from the point, he's just got a really nice shot. So I think that was the biggest thing that struck out for me. But kind of like Willander, I'm excited to see him this year too, because Seattle will have even more players going up. Jeremy Hansel, who was typically the number one guy right before Sawyer Minyo in Seattle, he's going to be gone as well. So now this year, even more so, Sawyer Minyo is going to take on even more minutes. So I was just overall impressed with for me, it was his offensive game. So as you alluded to, he's more of a defensive style, penalty killing defenseman, which is great. He's super aggressive. But for me, it was just that offense. I did not expect to see him put up the kind of goals he was putting up. He's basically their Elias Pettersson shooter on the left flank there. His one timer is that good at the junior level. So that was for me the big thing. And yeah, in my opinion, he was this year's unsung prospect, which I didn't really see coming. He was kind of it's a good ode to the scouting staff, because I think when he was drafted in the third round, I think there were a lot of question marks about what they saw in this kid, that in the third round, maybe if it was in the fifth, sixth, or seventh, you could justify it. But I think him getting taken in the third round was a bit of a head scratcher for a lot of people. And so I think it's a nice justification for the scouting staff, and something that they saw in him a little beyond what some other people might have saw.
Dave, good stuff as always. We really appreciate it. People can find you over at Canucks Army. Thanks for doing this, man. Appreciate it.
No problem. Go Mariners.
There he is. Go Mariners. Dave Hall. Our thanks again to Dave Hall for joining the show. Okay, let's get to our poll question, which is brought to you by Bet365, a proud partner of Canucks Conversation. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets, whatever the sport, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code VANBONUS when you sign up for an account. Okay, our poll question today: which prospect has the best chance at cracking the NHL roster next season out of training camp? Max Sasson, Jonathan Lekkerimäki, Aatu Räty, and other. Harman, right now, 51.3% of people say Jonathan Lekkerimäki, 31.3% say Aatu Räty, 15.1% say Max Sasson, and then 2.4% say other. I am going with Max Sasson. And I was going to do this before the conversation with Dave, but the conversation with Dave only solidified my opinion that it's Max Sasson here that has the best chance at cracking the NHL roster out of training camp. This isn't a knock on Räty. Definitely isn't a knock on Lekkerimäki. What it is kind of a recognition of how this management group handles prospects and how they can't afford to make the same mistakes that the last regime made with Vasily Podkolzin. And what I mean by that is that Vasily Podkolzin, if he was going to, what they wanted him to be was a top six forward, right? But his deployment was all over the place when he first got to the NHL, right? And combine that with the fact that he never really got regular minutes in the KHL, and he was also all over the place in the KHL. Like with Podkolzin, it was, okay, you're playing well, we're going to put you in the top six. Okay, you're not playing well, now you're going to the fourth line, now you're in the press box, and he's just all over the lineup. With Lekkerimäki, I look at it as an opportunity for the Canucks to put him in the AHL, let him be the guy, instead of saying, okay, he had a strong camp, so we're going to put him on the third line. We're going to put him on the fourth line. And maybe third line, because of how the Canucks roster is constructed, maybe you're looking at it and saying, okay, he can get some weaker matchups. I'll listen to that. But at the end of the day, I think the best place for Jonathan Lekkerimäki out of training camp for both him and the team is probably in Abbotsford. Being the guy gives him a better chance, I think, at becoming that first, second line winger that they ultimately want him to be.
Yeah, the notion of sending Lekkerimäki down to the AHL isn't set in stone, but I do think that's by far the more likely outcome. The only question mark I'd have with Sasan, who I think deserves an NHL look at some point next season, is Nils Oman sort of already maybe that 13th forward, for instance, as that extra depth centerman. So if Oman is already sitting in the press box, do you have a need for Sasan?
Yeah, it depends what they do in free agency ultimately, right?
Yeah.
Like it depends who they add, because right now we're also assuming Teddy Bluger's back, right? But if you're in a world where Nils Oman is your fourth line center, then all of a sudden there's a need
an
for
opportunity
Max
for
Sasan.
Sasan. So
Yeah.
That's going to play a significant role. And I also think Baines is probably further along in his development than Ratu. Ratu definitely has a higher ceiling, but Baines is 23 years old. So, and he's already gotten his first taste in the NHL. So if he can take another step over the summer, make progress in training camp, especially with how many winger vacancies there are in the Canucks lineup, and how many there are going to be in the bottom six, he could be a player that definitely makes team out of camp.
I like it. And we got some write-in votes as well. So I wanted to read those. Yeah. We had Sasan. Well, Sasan's not a write-in, but a lot of people saying Sasan. And I like this. I don't like it because we talked about it last show too. But people throwing it out. As of today, with the uncertainty around the defense returning Cole McWard, Canucks are going to fill out the defense core. If they don't, and Cole McWard is the best option, I think they might have some other issues that they need to deal with, namely on the defense. But McDonough, people are asking about Aiden McDonough, Linus Karlsson. But again, when we talk about Podkolzin, when we talk about Linus Karlsson, like I'm not really counting those guys as prospects anymore.
Yeah.
And that's the thing though, like Max Sasan's 24. So why are we calling him a prospect, right? It's the same thing as it's the Akita Hirose concept where we're like, okay, why are we talking about this person as a prospect? Like Max Sasan is our age. Are we prospects? No.
Yeah. I mean, I think the difference is with Sasan, his game is already seems pretty projectable, and we've already, the shiny toy factor also makes a difference. We've already seen what Karlsson looks like in the NHL.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And maybe he's a depth piece. He's an RFA. So is he going to stay? Is he going back overseas to Sweden? We don't know. We don't know that aspect either, but you're right. I mean, when it comes to Karlsson, when it comes to Sasan, even Baines, although I think he has a little bit more upside, that tier of quote unquote prospect or young player is more or less going to be just replacement level depth. It's the pieces like Ratu, obviously Lekkerimäki, that you're hoping can be a little bit more, and maybe Podkolzin can be a little bit more than that too. But really, when I look at this, or when I look at the potential players that are most likely to make an impact next season among young players, prospects, whatever it is, there aren't many of them that stand out as, oh, they're going to be real impact guys. Like, wow, this guy's going to make the NHL and make the NHL team, and they're legitimately going to move the needle. Because the guys that are legitimately going to move the needle, Lekkerimäki, Ratu, are more likely to still need more seasoning.
I like it. Okay, Grady's got to go to the bathroom, so let's get to anyone else. We've got a lot to do too. Let's do it. Okay, anyone else? Brought to you by the Vancouver Canadians. The Seas are on the road, but we'll be back for a big homestand starting next Tuesday, this Tuesday, June 11th. And it's the dog days of summer. Bring your pup to the park and let them soak in the atmosphere at Nat Bailey. Don't miss the Nooner at the Nat on Friday the 14th, which includes a rain-out doubleheader against Spokane. And don't miss Family Fun Sunday on Father's Day, June 16th. Catch fireworks giveaways, Friday Nooners, and superstar appearances all spring and summer long. To get your tickets, call 604-872-5232 or go to CanadiansBaseball.com. You know what I had? Always reminds me of Nat Bailey Stadium. But you know what I had over the weekend?
What?
A root beer float.
Oh, nice.
Oh, it was such a good idea. Had a little bit of vanilla ice cream in the freezer. I knew I had a little bit left. I'm a big milkshake guy. I make milkshakes. I'm a big milkshake guy. But we were driving home, and it was that hot Saturday. We were like exhausted. Bert sleeping in the back seat. I was like, hey, you know what we should do? We should get dollar drink days, because dollar drink days aren't dollar drink days anymore. But you can use the app sometimes and get the rewards or whatever. I had any size for $1. I was like, okay, let's do that. So got myself a large root beer, 2 glasses, root beer float. Wonderful. I love root beer floats.
Let's go. I love that.
They're so good. What's your drink of choice? Like milkshake, float, 2 different things.
Water.
What are you talking about? Don't even
I'm serious.
start.
I drink basically nothing other than water.
What?
Yeah, I
You've
don't
had
drink coffee.
You've had a milkshake. What?
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, maybe. I can't remember last time I had a milkshake.
Well, sorry. Holy
Or
hell.
I used to love Slurpees as a kid, but there's no way I'm putting that back in my body.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I push back a little. I like Slurpees too.
Yeah, but I mean, I just don't want to inject 80 grams of sugar or whatever it is into me. But yeah, I mean,
Some of my best shows right before injecting 80 grams of sugar into me.
yeah, I basically just drink water. Like I don't drink beer. I don't drink.
I don't
just,
drink beer
really
either.
drink in
Yeah.
general. I mean, I guess I'll enjoy a nice Gatorade if I've done something athletic, but I also don't buy Gatorade. It's like if it just happens to be there.
Like if someone tosses you one,
Yeah, or like
find one on the ground.
I was at a running event or something, and they had, it wasn't Gatorade, but it was like water and then one of those like electrolyte things that
Oh,
taste
yeah,
like
yeah,
Gatorade. So I had that.
What's this? Has anybody seen what's it called? IV liquid?
Oh, liquid IV.
What's that?
Oh, that's supposed to be for basically if you have a night out drinking the next day, cures your hangover. Supposed to be, that's what it's.
Back in my day, what's your hangover cure?
Well, I don't really drink anymore. So
When you were a commoner like the rest of us, what was your? I drink 3
was like
times a
19
year.
or 20. You don't need to recover.
Oh,
when
I did.
you just
Well, I
sleep.
mean, I didn't
Or
really
drink
drink.
a ton of water.
I didn't drink for the first time until I was like
Dude, you just
21. But anyways,
Drink a ton of water
no, that's
Yeah.
not. No.
before you go to bed.
This is
like
just the
before you go
wrong-
to bed.
This is the wrong person to be talking to about this. But what you do, you have a bag of popcorn. I learned this from Faber too.
Okay.
I should say. Okay, so I'm not just spewing here. This comes from experience. Faber's had to come over some huge hangovers in his life. You do popcorn. You have a Gatorade right before bed. That's what you do. You eat a bag of popcorn, Gatorade. In the morning, you have sausages. You need that grease. Sausages and toast.
I remember one time in Toronto, it was my first road trip.
Oh hell yeah! I like
Covering
where
in-
this is going.
And I was out with some friends, and I went back to my hotel, chugged 3 glasses of water right before bed, woke up feeling amazing. But then again, I'm like 19, like, of course I feel great.
Yeah, I guess I didn't start till I was 21. I definitely didn't feel much in that first year.
I feel like it should be illegal to talk about quote unquote hangover cures if you're like under the age of what?
Well, I know
Pick-
it gets
pick an
worse.
age,
Well,
early 20s.
it gets
It
worse.
gets way worse.
It gets
when you're
worse,
older,
and that's
from
been
what-
my
from what other people have
experience.
told
It's
me.
getting worse. It's getting worse. It's harder to get up. I'm not gonna keep going. Anyways, Nar says orange juice and triple O's. Karen in the chat. A combo of popcorn, Gatorade, and sausages sounds awful. Yeah, you blend all that up and you just drink it straight. Okay. Anyways, do we have any? Oh yeah, this one from Hachiroku might have been for Dave, but I think Dave wrote about this. He asked about college free agents worth signing this season. I think Dave did this, didn't he?
I think I saw him tweet out.
Yeah, he did a list. And he's doing another one too. He either did OHL or he did college, and he's going to do another one, which I'm very excited about because all my prospect coverage, especially Canucks centric prospect coverage. There it is. List of unsigned prospects the Vancouver Canucks could target this summer. I'll put it in chat. I'll put it in chat in the YouTube chat. And for those on the podcast, you can just go ahead and Google it. That's how you'll find it. A list of unsigned prospects the Vancouver Canucks could target this summer. And he's going to look at some OHL guys too. But I like this one because of his name. This is the reason I brought this question up, because I remembered liking a name. Graham Sword. Like sword, but with an A. Graham Sword. And best part, Harm, 6'3", 20-year-old left shot defenseman. Originally a 5th round pick of the Nashville Predators. Can't teach size. Get him on the team. Who's the other tall guy? There was another tall guy that I liked here. Yeah, Ben King. This is the next Dakota Joshua. Ben King. 22 years old, 6'3", 201. That's it.
You got to be okay. I'm going to set a limit for you this offseason.
Yeah.
You are only allowed to call a guy the next Dakota Joshua
3 more times?
3 times.
Okay, so I have Riley Tuff, Ben King.
No. You
Oh,
want to
from
use
now
all three?
on?
Yeah, from
Oh,
now
okay.
on until the end of the offseason.
Easy.
You can't. Don't burn those.
I'm not going to burn them
three
just on the
chances
article.
on those guys you mentioned.
Sure. But Ben King is actually interesting. The reason I bring up Ben King, aside from him being obviously the next Dakota Joshua, that 112-point season that Archie Baines had before his first AHL contract, Ben King was with him there. 217 points to finish 1-2 in the WHL scoring race during the 2021-22 season. They were right there with each other. So this is your next chance to go get the next Archie Baines.
I'm glad you switched it up. Otherwise, I was going to count that as one. It would have been like, you got 2 left.
Well, I'm not backing down from Riley Tuff. I'm using Riley Tuff.
Okay.
Although
so
I did have a few prospect people reach out to me and be like, just so you know, Riley Tuff isn't very good at hockey. Admittedly, I
tried
haven't
to
watched,
warn you.
Admittedly, I haven't watched him play, but you can't teach size. And none of us know if he's been told to skate in a straight line.
Instead of evaluating whether a player is actually good at hockey, good at his job, you're just going to start evaluating them based off their listed height.
Dude,
this is like somebody applying to Canucks Army, and you're just judging them solely based off their physical attributes rather than their actual writing ability.
No, I'm not allowed to do that anymore.
Yeah, but you still do that with actual hockey players.
Yes. Riley Tuff, 6'6".
Please, can we not waste more time?
I'm talking about him again today with someone. Look, he couldn't crack it in Dallas. Oh, shocker. Dallas is great. Couldn't crack it in Colorado. Oh, Colorado's great as well. All that winger depth in Colorado.
Colorado doesn't have that much winger depth, dude.
No, in fact, I actually was using it as a bit of a counter argument for myself, because how many times this year did we talk about, that Colorado bottom 6 is just a black hole.
Remember one point in the season, Brandon Duhaime, and I can't remember who the other guy was. Brandon Duhaime was on the, they were on the second line.
Yep. So Riley Tuff, I can't even do it anymore. We'll see what happens with Riley Tuff. But here's the thing. I was going over Dakota Joshua's path, and rest in peace, CapFriendly. We'll talk about that next. CapFriendly, we'll talk about it. But I was going over Dakota Joshua's kind of career trajectory, career path, and everything. And the contract the Canucks gave him was just his first one-way contract.
Yep.
It wasn't even a $925,000, anything like that. It was $850,000, but it was a one-way contract for 2 years. That was the best thing he would have gotten on the open market. Now he's in line to go get that huge raise. Good for Joshua. Canucks obviously need to have a walkaway number when it comes to Dakota Joshua. But look, man, it doesn't have to be Riley Tuff. I think the Canucks pro scouting probably have watched some players instead of just looking at their size on HockeyDB. It feels like finding the next Dakota Joshua, people are looking at it the wrong way. People are looking at it and saying, this guy played this many NHL games last year and he'd do good in an increased role. And that's a fine exercise to have. But if we're truly talking about finding the next Dakota Joshua, you're looking for a guy that put up points in the AHL, that couldn't crack an NHL roster. I'm also saying probably has a two-way contract. Like, if you're actually trying to follow the path of finding the next Dakota Joshua, you're not just going out and getting a guy who, he played 80 games in the NHL last year and he was great, but we think he could be better here. That's fine. That's a fine thing to do. I'm just saying, don't call that the next Dakota Joshua.
Sure.
Excite me. That's what I want by the next Dakota Joshua.
Yes, but you also have to remember it took Joshua a year of being a good fourth liner before he hit his ceiling. And this Canucks team is trying to contend now. So you're trying to find both in a way. You're still trying to find those undrafted, or Joshua's fifth round pick, but you know what I mean? You're still trying to find those players that haven't quite cracked it as full-time NHL players yet, that maybe in a year or two can really hit their stride, but you want plug and play options too, right? It isn't just quote unquote finding the next Dakota Joshua. What about finding the next Pia Suter? Like repeating that.
I like that.
A guy who can actually play in your top 9, has a proven track record of being
less
able
exciting,
to stick.
though. It's less exciting.
It's more effective though.
Less exciting. Dakota Joshua is way more exciting than Pia Suter.
Yeah.
And finding the next Dakota Joshua, that's so exciting.
But Suter, you get that right away. Whereas Joshua, it took him time.
Different exercises. That's all I'm pointing out. They're just different exercises. So if we're talking about finding the next Dakota Joshua, you do want both. Of course you want both. But I'm just pushing back at this idea that when they sign, like, I don't know, Danton Heinen on the 1st of July, there's the next Dakota Joshua.
Well, it could be replacing the role.
Could be replacing the role. That's not the next Dakota Joshua.
Well,
is Danton Heinen going to play with the Canucks and then get $3+ million elsewhere? No.
Well, you have to make a distinction. Are you trying to find the quote unquote next Dakota Joshua in the sense of the development path or his lineup slot? Because absolutely Heinen could come in and replace Joshua's lineup slot on the third line, killing penalties, just being a versatile guy. Obviously not as physical. You're not going to get all the attributes, but
both. You have to do both.
Yeah.
Excite me. Dakota Joshua was exciting. When they got Dakota Joshua,
he wasn't that exciting when they originally signed.
But that's what I'm saying. So the next Dakota Joshua needs to be, to me at least, not just fill Dakota Joshua's spot in the lineup. It needs to be, hey, here's this guy we're going to get for pennies on the dollar. We're going to pay him this much. By the end of this contract, he's going to be brutally underpaid. And, well, not brutally, not to exaggerate. He's going to be underpaid, and he's going to be in line for a huge raise on July 1st. But because we found him before anyone else, we're not going to be the ones that give him that raise. That's exciting. That's what I want. NHL rosters need to consider what excites me a lot more than they currently do. Okay. What else is here in the anyone else? Yeah, see, this is the thing. Great question by Hachi Roku as we're talking about players. They said the question I keep coming back to, but are they a 6'6" winger though? Hashtag team Riley Tough. More and more people are saying it, Harm. Riley Tough is catching on.
Also, here's the thing. You just want a shiny new toy.
Yes.
That's what you just want a guy that you're like, oh, I haven't seen him in the NHL yet.
Tall.
Right? Because let's walk through this. A player like, let's say, Archie Baines, if he was a free agent, you'd be all excited. Oh, look at all the points he put up in the AHL. 112 points.
I get the sense you're saying this as an insult, but this is bang on. You're absolutely correct.
No, but now that he's already part of the organization,
yeah,
he's not in a shiny new toy. So you're not hyping him up anymore.
Oh, of course I am. I'm all in on the Archie Baines train. He's not the next Dakota Joshua.
You know what I mean? But that's what I'm saying.
But sorry, I'm just reading here. 6 feet. So he's not the next Dakota Joshua. To be the next Dakota Joshua, you've got to be over 6'3", man.
I've never seen somebody who's like 5'7". so like, gotta be this tall. You know what I mean?
Dude, you have to be. You absolutely, dude. If I were running a hockey team, I wouldn't draft people who look like me.
Okay, I'll draft.
What, you disagree with me on that?
You'll pass up like Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov. You'll pass up all those guys.
Sorry.
Quinn Hughes.
We have to compare. I may have the body type of those guys now, but when I was 19 and those guys were 19, those guys were thick 19-year-olds.
Oh no! Owner quads would have been like Quinn Hughes. That's a small body gentleman.
I'm pretty sure this is all my fault. I was the one that floated Riley Tuft and quads.
And Grady, that's the best thing you've done all year. That was amazing. That was the best. That was quite.
I can't wait for Riley Tuft to have such a mediocre year next season
with the Canucks.
The Tuft tracker,
dude. I can't wait. Say that to Riley Tuft's face. You wouldn't come up to us and say that to us.
What?
I'll be standing next to Riley Tuft in his locker, right? And you won't come up and say it to our face.
He has to make the NHL. First, he has to get signed here.
Dude, if he comes to Vancouver,
and then he has to make the team out of camp.
I will be putting so much pressure on them to give Riley Tuff a spot. What are we doing here? How did we do this? Okay, you want to talk CapFriendly? That came up over the weekend. Elliot Friedman reporting that the Washington Capitals are buying CapFriendly. You've seen The Office, right?
Which office? Oh, yeah, the show. Yeah, of course.
So, woof.com, when Ryan has woof.com,
yes,
and they have all the investors in the office, and then the University of Arizona or whoever it was, University of Pennsylvania, I don't know who it was, wanted to buy the site. And they're like, we have a buyer. And they were all excited about it. And then they realized it was just for the name. I had an idea that the Washington Capitals were like, well, they're using Cap in their name. We should be having that because Cap friendly. Long-winded way of telling you that I made a bad joke.
That was awful.
Yeah, on the day. That's my first thought.
You actually referenced The Office.
Took you on a trail.
One of my favorite shows. And I was like, this is
going
going to be good.
Blind.
Yeah, like some
the Washington
basic
Capitals.
Terrible pun.
Look, the Washington Capitals bought CapFriendly. Caps friendly. Get it?
I would expect better from a literal 10-year-old.
Okay. So everybody's wondering why the Washington Capitals bought CapFriendly. Obviously, people are pointing out that, well, now other teams aren't going to be able to use it. And trust me, folks, teams, people in the biz, fans, everybody uses CapFriendly. Like, teams are using CapFriendly all the time. It's a wonderful resource, but they are not going to have access to it anymore because the Caps are buying it and it is going dark on July 5th. Why else would the Washington Capitals want this?
Perhaps you really value the person that ran CapFriendly and you want their expertise as part of your organization, not just the database itself, because the database isn't too hard to replicate in terms of mapping out contracts, every team's books. That's not unique. There are other resources out there, but I think what made CapFriendly different was it had by far the best UI interface.
Yeah.
Easy to use, super useful for like waiver eligibility, CBA rules and explanation, easy to sort past signings, past trades. It was the UI aspect, and then maybe they really value the person that ran the site as an actual potential CBA/cap expert.
Yeah, and there's just it's not going to be easy to replace CapFriendly, but how thankful are we right now for Puckpedia? Like that's the first thing I thought of. Was I was thinking to myself like, oh well, now everybody's going to use Puckpedia, and I hope like look, not to criticize Puckpedia or anything like that, but like I hope people flock to Puckpedia the way that they did CapFriendly, because it is a super useful tool, and they have different strengths over at Puckpedia than CapFriendly did as well. So we all use Puckpedia for other things as well. But I hope it takes on that strong UI that we've seen at CapFriendly.
Yeah, again with CapFriendly, it was just the UI, the ease of use, and all the extra little goodies that they had in terms of like roster GM tools, right? Like you could go in and you could custom make rosters. You could move guys up and down. You could experiment and build your own rosters. Like how many people would have fun building their own CapFriendly rosters? And I don't know how many of those features are out there elsewhere on other alternative sites. I think Puckpedia is still working on a similar tool for their site. So it's it will eventually get there in terms of a site hopefully reaching CapFriendly's level of ease of use and information. Because certainly this has happened in the past. I mean, Cap Geek got sold in the past.
That's right.
I think General Fanager was the name of another site that got sold. It's just not something that you're going to flip and turn around, and within like 2 months you're going to have a site reach all the features and capabilities.
Speaking of nerds, Eric Tulsky, did you see this? The report, I think it was Frank actually that reported it. Yeah, this was Frank that reported it. Sources say candidates in the Carolina Hurricanes GM search have been told that they plan to fill the role internally, which obviously you would assume means the guy who has been pegged for the job for years, it feels like, Eric Tulsky, who once ran a hockey blog, someone in the chat said. He's going to become the next GM. How do you become an owner? That's what I'd like. That's the question I have.
You got to become a billionaire, Quads.
Okay, how can I do that? What do you think pops up if you search how do I become a billionaire? How do
Crypto scams.
I better not do this on my work account. How do I become a billionaire? Okay. Harm, would you like to buy some vitamins?
It's like the biggest source of like, that's how you know someone's shady, is if they're selling you vitamins.
Dude, trust me.
Or like this pill.
How much do you think about your gut health?
Not very often.
Well, a guy like yourself, you might want to. We'll talk. After.
You got nothing to sell me.
Okay. Yeah. So on CapFriendly, anything else that you wanted to say? Like, obviously, it'll be very missed by the entire hockey community. But hey, it's a good chance for the next one to step up. And Puckpedia is kind of that next one that we're all looking at.
Yeah. No, nothing to add beyond that.
All right. Let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day, which is brought to you by, you guessed it, Bet365. I'm looking at the Hart Trophy. The Hart Trophy again. And I'm taking it.
The Hart or the...
Excuse me, Conn Smythe. Thank you.
Yeah.
Conn Smythe. Connor McDavid at plus 300. I mentioned it earlier in the show. He was at like plus 180 on Friday after game one, where Bobrovsky steals the show. Bobrovsky jumps to number one. Connor McDavid at plus 300. I'm hammering Connor McDavid at plus 300 to win the Hart. I still think Edmonton could win this series. I do.
Yeah, they can. Do you think it's the more likely scenario, though?
No. If I'm putting odds on it, no. Florida's more likely.
Yeah.
I mean, not just because they have the one game lead. Like, I think before the series, that's what we were talking about as well. But I don't know, man. Like, what did we pick for the DFO Survivor? We said Edmonton would win
Yeah.
tonight, right? So we'll see. We'll be back on Wednesday to chat about it. But if you play at Bet365, you must be 19 plus to play. And if you choose to play, please play responsibly. And again, don't forget to use that promo code VANBONUS when you sign up for an account. But we'll close it out there for my co-host Harmon Dial and our technical producer Grady Sass. My name is Dave Gugelli. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.